Hello everybody and welcome to another week of Tryhard Tuesdays where we learn to try a little bit harder here at .p. I am your host, the Grand Wazoo, and sitting here with me is my Grandmaster, my Yoda, my Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur is the best one for sure. None other than Flubb with two B's. How's it going, Flubb?
Hey man, it's going pretty well.
Isn't it good to be back home? I always like being on our show. It's a comfortable den. And I know I said that last week, but the comfort is real, and we're back, baby. We're not taking any breaks. We always show up to work.
Good chemistry, man. We both think the same way. So
it's like when Harry met Sally.
Exactly, like how Harry met Sally.
Pretty much. But anyway, it's been an interesting week in Dota, even with there not being much played. Tons of fun stuff is going on. You know, I've been playing a bit, but not that much. There's still some tournaments being played. Shuffle speculation still continues, as you do. But one of the interesting things is two teams that were formed. Ice's team with Black, I believe, or was it Sing Sing?
I knew that was coming. Everyone's like just going insane about that.
It's interesting because Black is coming back. Was it with Sing Sing or Ice? I always get confused.
It's Ice.
Okay, because Sing Sing started another team, I think.
Yeah.
But another team is Team NP, which is going to be Internal Envy's team, which is old Cloud9 players, kind of. So that's interesting. These are things we know, that these are rosters that are locked in. And what do you think about these so far, Flubb? Do you think that we're going to be able to see some interesting Dota throughout 2016 and 2017?
Most definitely. I think that personally, I don't want to join the bandwagon, but at the same time, like, it is going to be awesome to see Black come out again, especially with Ice. Like, they did so well in the past together, and I feel like that they still have like a good mentality that can work together. I also feel like it's always great to see someone come out like Black, who's really, really good, but he could never really find his place within the pro scene. I feel like there's a lot of times where he would get on teams that just like didn't fit his play style or didn't like fit him. And when you get that person and you finally have like something cohesive that works together, I just get so happy because like you see these guys and you want them to succeed, and then they just like don't for years and years. So I'm just always wanting Black to do well.
Yeah, and on the flip side, you got Envy's team, and after playing with Secret for quite a while and a semi-solid relationship, but you know the results never came home, he has started a new team. Some people are coming back. Some people are just people you know from the scene, Cloud9 players, and good players. I mean, he said they're relative unknowns, is what he said when he was drafting this team, but these are all semi-known players. I guess they're not all unknown, but I look forward to that. I think Envy's a really good captain in a lot of ways. Let's not forget that Owie 2000's on this team. So that's a team that's a guy that's not necessarily a no-name person. He's won a TI, did so on EG. So it's interesting. This team is kind of composed of people that are very good. You got 1437 Theban, Siva, SVG, who I do not know, but I do know Arif Anwar, MSS. And so these are all players that have been known through Cloud9, as I understand it, and just known throughout the Dota community. So I really look forward to them. I'm a fan of Envy. I think he's kind of like Black in a way, in the sense, not that he went like the personality route in terms of his Dota career, but more so that he's a very, very smart player that just needs to find his right team. You know, needs to find his place, and maybe he'll be like the best in the world. Who knows if Black could be like the best in the world? He's a very, very good player in many positions, but Envy, I think, could be top carry in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe. I feel like Envy, he definitely has a lot of things that he does really well. I feel like he has some classic mistakes that kind of pull him down, and if he could somehow kind of rise above it, which, I mean, the same thing with Black, in my opinion. I just, for some reason, I'm more of a Black fan than I am an Eternal Envy fan. So I always want to give the edge to Black, but Eternal Envy, there's no doubt that he has earned his spot in like the Dota leagues. You know, he's a guy that has earned his medals, and I don't want to take that away from him. But there are certain situations where I see him play, and I'm like, what's going on? What's Eternal Envy doing here? Or man, that was incredibly risky, and that's coming from a player who plays very risky in general. So um, I I kind of like that, but at the same time, I feel like he goes off the deep end sometimes. Um, but the thing is, when he's with Owie 2000, he's been on his team in the past, and
It was Cloud9, wasn't it?
Yep, and it was Cloud9. I think he was on another team as well. I'm pretty sure they go way back. And Owie 2000 is like, he just fits Eternal Envy's playing style so well.
And he's playing carry in this team, whereas Jackie Mao's playing mid. So who knows, you know?
Yeah.
They're both very... I think maybe Jackie Eternal Envy is a little bit better in the mid lane in some ways, just because he is that trick player that can pull off all that stuff, whereas AUI 2000 is better in the carry role, just because he's got that calculated way of just breaking a lane down and getting the most possible out of it. And you can see this on some of his Morphling videos and stuff. He's just incredible with maximizing efficiency in the lane. So I'm very much looking forward to this team, as am I. Black's team. We'll watch with bated breath. We still have questions, you know. I don't know exactly where our boy Arteezy is going to go. I don't know where a lot of other people are going to go. But we'll see, you know, and it'll be interesting to watch this Dota develop, because it feels like we're going to get a good mix around this time around for this season. So,
oh, most definitely. I said it the last time we had our show. This is some of the most exciting times to be around Dota right now. This is like, people are coming out, and they're coming out swinging, and they're coming back to like old classic combos of people, which is really cool, because you're getting some old classics coming back, and you're getting some new blood forming in, and it's great to have both. It's great to have the nostalgia at the same time of like seeing it move forward. So it's just great, man. I hope more teams form, and there will be like 60 top pro Dota teams. That would be cool, you know. But in time.
It is a game that you see new franchises built and franchises fold overnight. I mean, you look at Wings, and they won. Huge game, huge franchise. But, I mean, they could have been, right? But they dropped all their players. And so it's like maybe they're going to get a new squad or something. But it's interesting just to see we're not quite there to the point where you're building long-lasting, like, franchises. The best I think we have is like Liquid and EG, and EG's folded, Alliance is folded, and so it's interesting, right? You're seeing very, very fascinating times, but you're also seeing uneasy times in other ways. And we've come very, very far in money in the scene for the players, but we have further to go yet for like business aspects. And the success of that is hugely shown through DC, who has picked up interesting players, you know what I mean? Like, they got Moon Meander, so it's like, wow, you know, like they're moving up as well. And so they've just decided to treat their players the best they can, and we'll see how they do as well. And I think that kind of should cap the pro discussion. We're going to try to have a little bit of time for that, just to talk about news in Dota, not necessarily just pro news. But I thought those points were rather interesting. Flub, do you have anything to add before we move on to the body of our show?
Nah, I'm excited to talk about what we got ahead, man. Let's do this.
Awesome. So, guys, we have decided today that we are going to be talking about when to take a fight and aggression, because I've done a little bit of podcasting with Flub, and he mentioned something that he said. You said that aggression in the early game can be won by playing your position of a 4. Like, you can help win the mid lane, you can help win the bottom lane, and those rotations and how you define that aggression can very much set up all your lanes up for victory. I'd like to get into that a little bit more because you're really good at rotations and stuff, and kind of talk about aggression as a primer before we talk about later on how to take a fight. So what do you think about early game aggression? Where do you find it most effective?
So early game aggression is something that's hard to define in a whole sense. It's about the hero that you play and what you have available to that hero's skill set. Um, if you're going to be a true roamer, then you need to take full advantage of that and definitely either start the game with a smoke or have a smoke eventually pulled out to you before like the 2 minute mark. Um, the whole idea of you picking up a ganker is hopefully you can kill someone, kill their off lane, get that extra boost of experience, get that extra boost of gold from the first blood, whether it be given to your carry or other support so that he can help with other stuff, or just being able to get the levels in that lane so that you can then rotate out and kill elsewhere. Because level 1 you can gank with Earth Spirit. It's a little hard, but once you hit the level 2 mark, the availability of having that stun or that silence can just guarantee kills. The same thing with like Pudge. Having Rot with Hook is so much better than just having one or the other. I mean, everyone knows if you have a spell and another spell that you can use, you can take advantage of it. So the idea is whenever I look at a game and I'm playing 4 and I have someone who's very good at ganking like Pudge or Spirit, or we'll even go with like Ricky or Bounty Hunter or something like that. Ricky and Bounty Hunter kind of go under different rules because you're like going for courier snipes and things like that. But it's all about mind games. And if you can convince their other player that you're around in the off lane, like kind of like pulling in a couple times or getting a pull off. Sometimes what I'll actually do is if I know that I can get a pull off and they're scared enough, I actually rotate as the pull happens. It's a very small window, and you have to do it just right. You have to be well coordinated with your 5. But if you're playing a 4 and you're having the situation where you can pull off a lane and get to the mid by smoking, and they farm that creep camp, it's very unlikely that they will call it soon enough because they think that you're over there farming it, and you'll get to run over to mid and generally
set up a kill, huh?
Set up a kill in mid, which is the most important position to set up. If you're going to set up a kill anywhere that's on a rotation, you don't want to do the off lane because it's really hard to like smoke into potentially a 2v3 situation. You always want to go for the mid and guarantee that lane's doing well because it's the most as safe lane, but you don't have the needed protection that lane that safe lane naturally gives. So it's all about the movement that you have through jungle, through understanding when you're pulling, and when you have that down, it's about moving in the right tree lines. Tree lines are incredibly important in understanding when your smoke's going to break. With someone like Pudge or Earth Spirit, generally you can walk up into the lane and start because you're going to be smoked without, like, you can throw a hook in the right scenario as smoke is breaking, or you can be smoked and you can roll into the lane. But if you're playing someone else that's like Venge, and I see this all the time, even at my MMR, which is astounding, they'll smoke and then they'll like go straight down the main bridge of mid, like that main lane, like where the creeps are coming out. That is a horrible spot to go down. If you are Venge, your stun is non-existent for the range. You have to walk around and you have to get behind the back. Go up around top rune area, go down those 2 ramp, go down the ramp, then up the other one, and kind of wrap around at that point. If you need to, like, lay a ward at that spot that's not in the edge of the mid lane, like before the smoke breaks, like almost above the bridge that goes up into the jungle, the ramp that goes up into the jungle at that point, at the very edge of the river, and it'll give you sight. It'll give you a clear ganking position, whether it's night or day, and you can generally get solid pickoffs with just yourself at that point because you'll be able to rotate in the exact right position. So ward, smoke, just like everyone know how to use them, know when you're using them, know the lines that you need to cross, and how useful you can be at those points. Don't depend on stupidity, because if you depend on stupidity, then you're gonna lose it every time, because there's got to be someone who's better than you in any scenario.
The only type of stupidity you can depend on in Dota is your own stupidity. If that's any way to put it. Another thing about smokes, people don't use them, and I know I don't use them that much because I'm like below 3K, and I don't look at it as a resource like a ward or anything. But if you're traveling places on the map and there's places you want to be and you don't want to be seen, it's very good to just run there. Like if you need to run somewhere, you can port as close as you can get, smoke, and run up on the fight, and they won't even know you're there from the wards that are in the area. So it's very good for different ways, and for every position, it's very good. It's not just good for team smoke ganks; it's also good for that individual, just not being detected reason. I mean, I know it sounds obvious saying it, but I know I don't utilize them as well as I could, and they can help you from not being seen and just getting closer or even escaping at times. So.
Well, what's funny is I've actually used them, and you can use them to good effect this way. Is if you can TP in with your other, like let's say your other support already TP'd bottom, and you see that they are gathering up top. They're starting to gather up top to push the lane. You can actually TP down to bottom, smoke with your support, and kind of help them get over to the other side. And they don't see you through wards, so generally if they're pushing top or they're pushing a lane, then they're going to kind of have a support that has already gone up there and warded that area so that they can push it and they can see everything, or they're going to eventually have one come up there and try to ward. And if you can get over there quickly with your smoke, one, you can be under guise of smoke if they do have a ward and they don't see it coming and they feel like they're going to jump the off lane, and you just counter gank them. Or two, you can have it set up to they're going through the woods. There's no way that they see you. They're just like barely putting down the ward, and you meet them, and surprise, you get a kill because they're out of position trying to get a ward up, and then it stops their push because they don't have a support, and they have to pull back and wait for him to respawn. And that 30 seconds of time of like just sitting around there, that's huge, especially when you're grouping up as 5.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Just to say that rotating in on people like as a reactionary measure, not necessarily always in an offensive measure, is very good. Because when you go in and you try to gank a lane, you're not expecting more people to be there, because that would probably make you turn back. You would not want to engage into like a 2v3 situation. And so to just have that guys up and just to be there waiting to like reinitiate or just provide more numbers for your team when your team gets initiated on, it's very good. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to put it in terms of early game aggression. It's if you can be there, like that pull idea is just very, very good, because when you see a pull happening, you immediately associate that with someone's doing that, right? And then if you rotate to another lane, you're instantly there to prove them wrong. So it's very good. The mind games aspect is good. I think that gives everyone some pretty good examples of how you can kind of win lanes for other people and how you can rotate more effectively. And that's all we kind of wanted to go over as a primer. And now I'd just like to talk about taking fights in general, because I feel like a lot of times my team will lose a fight and we'll just continue to fight and lose and fight and lose and fight and lose. And like, what? Fight and lose? You know, like you just do it 100 times and then you lose the game. And I think it all starts with the bad foundations of not really knowing how to take a fight, and then that just kind of snowballs from there. So what do you do to take a good fight, like in the early to mid game? Would you say if you're going to take like a full team fight?
Well, it's important to look at the other team, and it's important to look at your own team and see what you're designed to do. If you generally are built for team fight, or you think that you have a stronger team fight, it's generally good to group up. I would say probably around, maybe even as soon as like the minute 10 mark, minute minutes. I would say minute 9 to minute 13. Group up and just push a lane down. Just grab their safe lane tower and deny them that ability to farm safely in their jungle, or at least far out into their jungle. And if you're really good at pushing, if you have like kind of a cheesy strat where it's like Luna who's like buffing all your damage or something, or generally if you're having, there's multiple different ways you can get a hella good push going. But if you look at the situation and you know that you can get 2 towers before they can get 1, or like move that around, that's very important. If you get 2 towers in one lane, that prevents them from being able to TP out anywhere near that area. So then it gives you an ability to gank with heroes. And generally, how I like to build my lineups is that to have the ability to have like one ganker, and then everyone else pushes or team fights or does something in general. And whether that ganker is someone that's built into the carry position or not, kind of depends. So if let's say you're going like Slark. Slark's a really good example. So you can like have him like farming in the jungle, and then he comes out of nowhere and like ganks whenever after that lane's like pushed all the way in. He can then get that money to then get the ability to have a Shadow Blade, and he can just gank all day long because they have to have wards set up all in that area, and then that's a massive area to have. So for a while he gets to roam free, and then if they do have a bunch of wards, then he just goes back to the jungle and farms while you guys go push down a lane, and then they have to answer to that, and then Slark can go push in another lane by himself. There's multiple different things that you can have set up. And if you have the ability to early 5-man and like gain that gold advantage, gain that like that 2 tower advantage, it really puts the enemy on a back foot.
So those early advantages, I mean, they don't just roll in terms of gold or anything. I mean, I know towers give a hefty amount of gold to everybody, but territorially, it's very interesting that you're trying to knock out this space first, depending upon what heroes you're up against. It's going to be more valuable to take certain towers at times. And I know you're kind of using the idea from a more like general perspective of like sieging any tower, but how would you put it on its head and stop that from happening? If, for instance, you wanted to not have that disadvantage of being a tower behind, how would you stop that? How do you initiate on people that have a draft that's kind of lined up to do that?
So first, I'm going to give you worst case scenario, because generally that's when people just kind of give up on the game. So let's say you don't even have a good way to like stop the push. I wouldn't generally put anyone on the defense versus the 5-man push until they get to the racks. If you have like, let's say you have like Bounty Hunter and like PA, and the rest of the guys are okay at dealing with it. But if you have like a Bounty Hunter and a PA on the same team, that's really rough for being able to clear waves and make sure it's out in the back. That's not too bad of a team to have, like if everything goes well, but they can generally push you down, and if Bounty isn't able to create the space that he most definitely needs to do in the beginning. So if there's something rough that happens and they start pushing you down, have Bounty Hunter possibly sit around in that lane and just soak the XP of the creeps dying, but he should never show himself in that scenario. Or if he does, he should guarantee that no one has any wards or sight which generally they will when they're 5-man pushing versus a bounty hunter. So it's kind of like take advantage of what you can in that situation. Try to push the other lanes. Try to guarantee that you're getting the most farm possible. And everyone always tells you to do that, but that's how you should look at it. People, I'm even guilty of it sometimes. They'll throw a support down there when they can't really stop it, and it's important if you can stop it. If you have like 2 or 3 heroes and you can like kind of stay pulled back, it's important to put up some defensive wards for the ability of like watching people wrap around and put them in like kind of unconventional areas, and be able to like throw spells out. I do that with Earthshaker or Coddle or people who can like really clear waves or keep people at bay. So it's fine to have people like that if you have like a team built for it. But if you're in a really bad situation,
Just
keep your losses
sack it
to a
entirely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
keep
interesting.
your losses to a minimum.
And I think that's something I have a hard time doing is you're seeing all this territory being given up for free, and it's just like, no way, we got to go do something, you know? And if you feel like you're idle when you're losing all that stuff, then you're playing poorly. But sometimes it is truly the best decision just to give it up. Because their power curves on their heroes are going to peak in the mid game, and you hold them off, hopefully, and you can hopefully beat them after that. But,
Right.
you know, that's what you're hoping for. And if you have good high ground hold, because it's not too bad to hold high ground with some of those heroes you mentioned. And maybe you have other heroes that are better for high ground, and you can just come back into the game. But it is frustrating. Right. I feel like the demoralizing aspect is especially frustrating because people will just be like, GG after that. And, they just won't want to play sometimes, or they just are done with the game, say we lose anyway. Like, what's the point of defending? How do you help pull that nosedive off so you can continue to engage in, like, good fights later on?
Well, the only thing that you can... I say this with, like, kind of meaning this. The only thing that you can control is yourself whenever you're playing the game. But if you look at it and you see... You can actually control other people. You can't control them positively. You can control people negatively, but you can never do anything positive. The biggest secret, for some reason, that no one cares to realize is that every single 6K MMR player that I've ever played with, that like actually has like a good MMR and like is keeping pace, is generally people who talk about toxicity. Like, sometimes they'll flame, very rarely. But they will have like certain situations where they'll like be like, man, you are just toxic. Like, you are the problem in this game. And it's generally they don't care about the people who are bad. They care about the people who are toxic. So just don't add to the problem. Even if they're like being being an ass, and you want to talk back to them because it's gonna like be catharsis. Like, it's better just to not say it, mute them if you need to, and just move on with your game. Because I have come back from like crazy scenarios. Just this past week, I had a Magnus. We killed a bounty hunter, and he wanted to push to tier 3s, and the rest of the team wanted to do Roshan. So we all went to go do Roshan, and he said, all right, that's how you guys want to play it? Well, then I'm going to go to the jungle for the rest of the game. And I was very confused because, one, Bounty Hunter is great at stopping Roshan because he can track people, and he can be invisible, and he can cause a lot of problems for a Roshan fight, but he doesn't really stop anything at tier 3s. So them not having their bounty hunter really didn't stop any of their power at tier 3. A little bit, but not much. So he was wanting to basically not get a free Roshan, then push whenever there was a possibility for it. He instead wanted to risk. We would have gotten the tower, maybe gotten the racks, and then gone back to Roshan, which we wouldn't have done fast, versus a bounty hunter, and he would have just tracked us up, and then they would have gotten like a free initiation on us. Um, but the rest of the game, this guy who is built for initiation, he had Blink Dagger and Force Staff. He manually went into the jungle and didn't. He like purposely left us alone and didn't participate for the next 50 minutes. So if you're if you're gonna be in that situation, if you're gonna be in that situation where they're just like refusing to help, like just try to mute them, try to calm the situation first, and then if they're just like refusing to help out, just kind of ignore the situation, ignore all the GG talk, all the crap that goes on, and just try to rally the rest of your team. Try to get your efforts on focusing on, okay, guys, we got to defend here as for, because, you know, generally we would have the carry off farming at this point, but we need him back here to guarantee that we don't get pushed in.
That's a good. All the things you're saying are very good, and you can't control anything but yourself, I think, is the root point of this. Like, people are going to do what they're going to do, and fixating on that is not healthy, nor is it wise. So just play your own game, kind of, I guess, and hopefully you'll be able to get into other fights as the game goes on, you know, with your team, most of your team there. But, Flub, what else is there to be said when it comes to communication about a fight, and how do you effectively communicate for a fight to happen? Do you always want to be fighting under towers? Do you always want to be setting up somewhere else, or do you just want to meet and kind of like go as it goes along?
Depends where the power is at. If you're generally going to be an early team fight hero, you want to try to like force them into fighting you, and generally how you do that is you push a tower. So you kind of want to fight outside of the tower, like somehow have someone like Pudge to pull them into the rest of your group if you're pushing in that 5-man scenario, or have an ability of like just ignoring the creep wave, just blowing them up, and having your creep wave live, so that they have so you have an ability to be able to dive the tower. That's generally how you want it to go in the beginning if you're set up for that. I would say as time moves on, if you go towards the mid game, it's all about those smoke ganks. It's all about coming out and truly having vision in the right spots, understanding when you can take full advantage and like kill off the carry or kill off the mid. That's a very important thing to happen in the mid game. It's something that's needed because you don't want to wait till late game, obviously, when they have all their items, because sometimes, like, if you have a well-farmed anti-mage, they can actually live through a 5-man gank or something crazy like that.
It's highly dependent upon your lineup, just like everything in Dota, is what I'm hearing, because you're going to want to engage at different points depending on your lineup. I'd also I want you to finish your point, but I also want to talk about fighting from behind at times, because I think that's something a lot of players have a really hard time with. But finish your point first.
Yeah. Well, I think that once you get to late game, it's very similar that you need to get smoke ganks, but it's also what's really important at that point is of your farm. It's important in the mid game as well. It's important at any point, but at the very peak of the game, every death counts, and it's very important to understand where you're farming and why you're farming in that position, because it would be nice to have a daedalus at that point, but if you're farming in a position where it's maybe going to cost you the game, or it's going to cost it's going to cost all your lanes to be pushed in, then you really shouldn't be farming in that spot, even if you have buyback, because it's just too risky. If you are a support or maybe some type of really defensive offlaner, you can be a little bit more risky. But if you're a mid or a carry, really think about where you're going, and you're not invincible even if you have a lot of farm. There's a lot of times where I've seen or um, been in games where Slarks think that they're invincible, and they just get jumped, and there's nothing that we can do. And like even though they have like BKB and their ult and a Shadow Blade, they just they just die. It's one bad move, one bad positioning can end the game. Um, so try to let the supports be in the riskier positions, or even the offlaner if need be.
So, moving on, what do you think about taking fights from behind? Like, if you are not terribly behind, but say you're like in the mid game and you've lost a fight or two, they're getting a little bit ahead, and you want to force some towers out so you have some space. How do you make an ideal fight happen?
Smoke. Smoke is the best way to answer that in any situation.
Smoke and good vision, right?
The idea, yep, smoke and vision. Because if you are behind, the element of surprise is always your greatest threat. It's not that next item. It can be that next item if it's really really close, but if you are like sometimes we'll even do it on our team, and I kind of disagree with the rest of my team on this, but like being like 800 from an item sometimes can be like a really big deal, and they can get that item, but that 800 gold is 2 minutes, like 2 minutes away, or even like if you farm really well, sure it might be a minute away, um, but that's still a minute away. That's people are going to be in completely different positions, and you need to be reactive to what they're doing just as much as reactive to what you're doing. And yes, going on the offensive is a problem where you have to like group up for the smoke. Generally, have to smoke under a place where they probably don't have wards, or your team has to have enough money to have a sentry to lay down where you're smoking. So it's kind of risky to do, and it's kind of one of those things where a lot of people might disagree in a certain aspect, but I have played this game, and every time I've ever been like slowly down and you get a good smoke off, that's when we win the games. It's not when we like sit back and farm. The only way those games win is if you sit back and farm, is if you have someone like Medusa, Spectre, those heroes. But if you're carrying like a Slark, if you're carrying with a if you're carrying with like Kunkka for some reason, or if you're carrying with like um, even I would argue even like a Meepo sometimes, even though Meepo is like crazy good, um, having that extra like holdback on a certain point isn't necessarily needed. Um, it's more needed to be able to react when they are about to get their items and blow them up before that. That is the aggressive player in me, and I always encourage people to be aggressive in Dota, because that's when you find your limits, and that's when you can get away with things that generally you don't think you can get away with. Because if you're playing the safe game all the time, then you're never really learning anything, and you're just sitting back and waiting for a certain situation. Sometimes that's definitely needed. Sometimes, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, when you get a five-man push on you, you hold back. You do not sacrifice yourself in that scenario. But if you are very small margin back and it's mid-game and towers are even and situations are even, get your lanes pushed out a tiny bit and then smoke, because that guarantee of having that surprise on them, getting that pick off hopefully, is way bigger than holding back and farming, because they're going to be an item up on you, and probably an item that is able to farm faster than you.
So do not fail to buy the wards. Do not fail to buy the smoke. Also, something I want to add is it doesn't matter what position you are. You can buy smoke. It's a relatively cheap item that can be activated from the courier. So being able to like just bring the courier and say, hey guys, smoke, and just ping a few times so we're going to smoke, people will typically do it. And then if you have a good plan, like you know where to go, where you can have the most impact, hopefully it's an area you have vision, so you have a good fight. This is all stuff that is actually in your control in a game. And everyone, like, I've heard people say at times that have talked to me about it, just that they have no idea how to make all their players show up, let alone initiate a good fight. But if you're clear and concise, ping a smoke and a smoke of deceit, whatever, or here, people will typically come. And then you just draw on the mini-map to go up through where you want to go. Hopefully you'll get the element of surprise and be able to come back into a game. Because for the longest time, it really did elude me how I could come back into a game once I'd already slipped behind. And
also, if you're a core, and it's a good point that you just brought up, made me think of this. If you're a core and you are an initiator, buy dust. If there is somewhere that they have invisibility on their team, buy dust, buy sentries. I don't care which one, buy one. Because if you are playing Magnus and you RP and someone's invisible, and then they get away because you jumped like ridiculously far, you blinked, skewered, and freaking, I don't know, force-staffed all the way up to get a perfect RP that one guy's around to help you out, and you can't dust them because they have a Mirana and they saw it coming, kind of, and they were able to hit the Mirana ult. That is like one of the most disappointing things ever. And it's very frustrating when you're playing support and you have to buy all these sentries and wards, especially when you're playing at a pub and you are the solo support. And if someone would just buy one dust, you could get upgraded boots. So,
and like, I don't know, I kind of get irked in pubs when people are like, buy dust, buy dust, buy dust. But you got to realize they're telling you this because, or I got to realize it, that they're telling you this so you can get kills. You know what I mean? Like, so you can finish people off, which is ultimately better for you and the team. And it's a slight investment to make sure you can grab these. So whenever you smoke, you should probably have some dust. You should have maybe even a ward if you're going to go up into an area where you need vision. These are all things that can just very much benefit and break down that divide when someone has more farm than you and you still got to engage them. You need that element of surprise, to quote Flubb. And I like that quote. The element of surprise is very good in Dota 2, as we all know. But Flubb, do you have anything else to add to taking fights before we move on and get on to our item of the week?
I feel like the only thing out of all the discussions we've had tonight is that maybe one more thing I want to say about smoke is that if you go and you smoke and you generally don't get anything out of it, it's what's important to have is to have the supports running along the whole time, warding up, so that the next smoke won't fail. If you have the ability to, if you're smoking, the wards should always be bought out. Whether you're buying some sentries to deward them in certain areas, or just to stop the invisible people, or whether it's obs to be able to see for the next gank and make sure that your smokes aren't going unused.
And just making sure you cycle those out, pinging them, letting people know that they can be bought, or just buying them yourself. They're such a negligibly inexpensive item, like they're like they cost 1 TP, right? 50 gold.
So it's 65.
65. So one word. It's one word, and you can then do something that can get you a pretty big advantage in a game or in a fight. That's there to be used, and a lot of people don't use them, so it's just a resource you don't use. A fantastic resource to use. But is that all you wanted to add, Flubb, or do you have anything?
No, that's it.
Cool.
I'm good. Let's talk about the item.
As always, guys, tweet at us what you think of the show, whether we're right or wrong, or you have anything else to add. We'd love to hear from you on Twitter, and that is at @p_show. Okay, moving into our item of the week. I know we said we were going to do the Blightstone and all those other items, but we've been wanting to do a special item for quite a while, more in a support vein, considering we've done like some interesting carry items with the Stout Shield, Poor Man's Shield, and the Blightstone, I guess, and raindrops and all this other stuff. But today we want to talk about the Glimmer Cape, because it's an item that can be hugely impactful and has kind of given supports a way to stay alive and keep their carries alive. So, Flubb, why don't you take us away on what you think of the Glimmer as someone who, sometimes buys it?
Okay, so the basic stats of this item is that, you have to have the Shadow Amulet and you have to have the cloak, which in total it'll cost you about $18.50. So it's relatively cheap for any of the items that you're talking about making for the later game. It's cheaper than all the other support items, cheaper than Mac, Aetherlens, Force Staff. Aetherlens is not really support, but you get the drift. But pretty much it's the cheapest makeable item. Maybe drums, but I don't even consider drums like good on supports anymore. So it's
who are drums
pretty
good
impactful.
On? Then
what? Sorry.
who are drums good on anymore? Are they good at all?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that I'm not really sure. Like, I've heard some arguments for Invoker sometimes. I don't know, man. It's just drums kind of
got nerfed into the ground a little.
Yeah, they kind of suck.
But sorry, we're not talking about drums. But I just wanted to know your opinion on that. Please continue on.
Right. So when you look at Glimmer Cape, the base abilities come from what you bought. You get plus 20 attack speed, which is actually kind of dumb. I mean, that's not very good for supports. But everything else about it is crazy good. It gives you 15 spell resistance flat, and then it gives there's a fade time on it. Whenever you use it, there's a 0.6 second delay, and it grants someone invisibility and 45% magic resistance to you or the target allied unit. And you can cast it while channeling. So it's generally, you can use it obviously on like Witch Doctor, or like even like Shadow Shaman when you're shackling. There's multiple different situations you can generally put it on people, or you put it on your teammate, or even on yourself as you're channeling, and that's very great to have. If you also the whole duration lasts 5 seconds. 5 seconds is a really long time. So
yeah, you can like leave a fight completely if you get initiated on and just like run out into the woods and then you're like running away, Right. It's very good if you're getting blown up as a support all the time, like if a Huskar just keeps leaping across the woods and like doing a slam dunk on your face every single time. Like as you see him coming towards you, you can break it with the Glimmer and like run, right?
Yep. Well, you can, if Huskar jumps, he still jumps to wherever you are, but you take the reduced magic damage
because of the resistance.
I mean, you are going to be slowed because of the resistance. And if he doesn't have, like I said, for some reason, we'll see Huskars like not pick up dust, and then you have that item, and they're like, oh, well, I lost out on this kill.
What you do, fam? What you do is you just TP right out as he's jumping towards you, and just throw the Harry Potter cloak over you, and just you're gone. Right?
Exactly. Yep, you got it exactly. That's the best way to beat Huskar. It feels like, especially when people are being incredibly greedy Huskars. If you see them like farming in lane for forever, they're not going to buy dust. So, also, Glimmer Cape has a 16-second cooldown pretty fast, and it costs 90 mana, which is kind of significant, but kind of not at the same time for using it. So this is a really good item. It doesn't give you any mana regen, which is kind of hurtful, but this item is like my item I go for whenever I am in a situation where it's like, all right, I need something. I have my essentials. What do I need next? Glimmer Cape. And even then, Glimmer Cape is the essential. It can be an essential, or it can be like one of the best items outside of the essentials. There is almost no situation that I'd pick up Glimmer. The only time I'm like wary of picking up Glimmer is if I'm facing like a Slaughter, and I know he's just going to be spamming Sight on me, or like a Bounty Hunter. Even then, even if you have that type of situation, you're still going to have 45 magic resistance to whoever you give it to. So there's almost no situation where you shouldn't use.
Just because the magic resistance makes it so well worth it, huh?
Oh yeah,
And it was kind
the
of nerfed down, if I remember correctly. It used to be much stronger beforehand, I think.
yes, it was.
Yeah.
I think at one point it didn't even cost mana, which was
Yeah, that's
insane.
right. The cape didn't cost any mana, and it offered way more spell resistance. But now it's like it's something you can throw over someone to be like, you might have been dead, but now you're not dead. You know, like it's kind of cool. It gives the support a little bit more control over the team fight, and it lets them also have an escape. It's just a good item. It shows Valve's thinking about the game in the right way. Um, how much does that cost with all the everything added up?
1850.
So yeah, I mean that's a very good value. It's a great item, great cost, great spell resistance. I mean, why not?
Yeah,
Do you have
and
anything? Yeah, do you have anything else to add?
it's something that's not picked up in lower level MMRs. And actually, I'm embarrassed sometimes. I don't think about it, even though like I go on about it, and I'll be like, oh, if I'm in like a really tough game with like really high MMR players, um, I'll be like, oh man, what should I get here? And almost every time they're like, yeah, Glimmer Cape. What are you doing? I'm like, oh yeah, of course, Glimmer Cape. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Um, it's so useful of a tool. Um, it also forces people to buy site, which is great. It can't. It's a low cost item that makes other people spend more money, not on themselves. So that's always great to have. And having the it's so good for not only spells because it gives that magic resistance, but obviously the invis is great for melee heroes versus carries. Um, but the spell resistance also gives you a great ability to resist team fights. If you're in a team fight and there's all this area explosion damage going on, you're taking 45% less of that damage that's happening in that 5 seconds, which is general death for pretty much anyone except for um, and just pretty much anyone in the game. You know, it, it's just I feel like this cape is something um, that it doesn't see play for some reason in lower levels, and I see it almost all the time as I get higher and higher. Um, and it should be looked out for. It's one thing that if you don't have enough mana and you're having mana problems and you can't afford it as like your second item, I totally understand. But it is probably the best third item that exists in Dota 2 right now.
And it's good for many reasons, and it's an item that the game really needed, which I think is why you didn't really hear anybody say just other than it's really good, and it feels like it should have been in the game for a while. I mean it evens out some of the playing fields between the supports and nuke ability in a cool way, giving it both offensive and defensive application. I like it. But with that being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and close out the show. Flub, why don't you tell everyone where they can reach you?
All right, guys, you can reach me at Flub Dota with 2 B's. Um, always on Twitter. I will try to answer back as soon as I can. Generally, I'm on that as much as Ursi, and that guy answers it like the second you write it out. So I'm getting pretty good at it. So if you guys ever want to shoot me any questions about what I think about something, or just general say what's up, reach me at Twitter. Also on Wednesdays we have the in-houses, and I play every Wednesday. I try to be there for every game throughout every season. So come down and play with me, and we'll just have a lot of fun, no pressure, and maybe we can try one of my crazy strategies if you guys want to try like a silly, I don't know, techie strategy or something.
Oh no!
But, come on.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! The Flub is going to lead a legion of techies against the .p community, guys. Watch out! I did not condone that behavior, but I am the Grand Wazoo. You can find me at .p_wazoo on Twitter. The general .p Twitter account that all of us access is at .p_show. You can read all my Little Pony fan fiction at just kidding. Can you believe it? Like, that's not the type of fan fiction I write. But anyway, guys, we have the in-houses, like Flubb said, 9 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesdays. If you have any questions, talk to our community outreach when it comes to in-houses, and that's at Grouty Dota. Other than that, guys, I don't have much more for you. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for listening to the show. And remember, stay hard